But the state of Saskatchewan is strong by almost any empirical measure that you choose. I've got a few with me, though, here today. Some of these speak not just to economic growth, by the way, but speak to the fact that people are benefiting from that growth. Because really, what's the point if your GDP is doing well, Bergen, if the families, if people in that jurisdiction aren't benefiting from the economic growth? Well, you know, there's some pretty interesting information in that regard. We know that with respect to earnings, we lag behind almost every other province in the country for years in terms of average national wages for our people. We know now that in this new Saskatchewan, we're near the very, very top in terms of wage earnings. I think there's only now one other province that's ahead of us, and we continue to grow with each Statistics Canada report that comes out. That tells you something. It tells you that the businesses, men and women who are entrepreneurs in this province, understand that we've got to keep workers, understand you have to attract new workers, and where they can afford it, where it's still consistent with their bottom line, they are providing better wages to their employees. And I thank those businesses here for doing that. There are other interesting signs that you might not directly link to economic development, but that are important for us to reference, especially with those in education leadership in the room. We've learned that Saskatchewan's dropout rate has been cut in half. That fact bodes very well for a future workforce. There are still between 7,000 and 8,000 jobs on saskjobs.ca. I should clarify, job listings, jobs that need to be filled on saskjobs.ca. And we know that we've got to do continued work in terms of attracting people to the province. But we also have to make key investments with First Nations in education issues, in education across the board, so we can help solve the labor shortage problem right here at home with Made in Saskatchewan solutions. I can tell you that as of Friday, when the new job numbers came out, Saskatchewan's workforce remains at a record high, 525,800. That's a year-over-year increase in October of 11,000 jobs, and the most recent numbers bode very well for the province as well. And for the 6th month in a row, First Nations and Métis numbers increased year-over-year by 6.7%, or 2,200 people, and Aboriginal youth employment was up just over 12%. There are other very encouraging signs. There have been surveys about our business climate in terms of the mining industry, and Saskatchewan is ranking among the top in terms of the provinces in the country. There's drilling numbers as compiled by the Ministry of Energy and Resources showing a 96% increase in wells drilled in Saskatchewan compared to last year. We know that our budget is benefiting from that, by the way. Your provincial budget is seeing a much larger increase in land sales, oil and gas land sales, where companies bid for the right to drill here and pay you as taxpayers for the right to do it. And our numbers are about threefold higher than we forecast they would be at the beginning of the budget. And no, that doesn't mean that the city of PA can have all that money. Jim. I'm going to talk a little bit about potash today, but I'm actually talking about potash. If I can, I'll deal with it briefly so that I can get to a broader message about the state of the economy of this new Saskatchewan. Because these two issues are inextricably linked. The individual issue of the potash takeover that we're dealing with still today, and the long-term future of Saskatchewan, the state of the province of Saskatchewan. I found out about the hostile takeover bid. Maybe some of you have heard on a date night. Tammy, who many of you know us from Prince Albert here, we were getting ready to go on a date night, and those don't happen very often, so I was pretty pleased about that. We were going to be going to a movie, and the phone rang, and it was a caller saying the next day the news would break that there was a hostile takeover bid planned for a potash corp by BHP Billiton. Let me be very clear about something. BHP Billiton is a good company. BHP Billiton is welcomed in the province of Saskatchewan. BHP Billiton's intention to build a new mine at Jansen Lake is a welcome development in the province of Saskatchewan. The government of Saskatchewan has worked hard to rebalance our royalty structure such that we accommodate expansions of the existing industry, but also brand new mines like the one that's proposed by BHP Billiton. I talked to other premiers who knew this industry, like Roy Romano and Grant Devine and Lauren Keller. And I talked to other premiers who knew about the importance of balancing a welcoming environment for developing our resources with the need to be stewards of our resources. And nobody did it better than Peter Lougheed, in my view, who struck that right balance for his province about guarding for the future, being a steward of that oil resource, but also ensuring that his place was a good place to invest. We talked to those people. We engaged what we think would probably be one of the most preeminent firms in the country, law firms in the country in terms of corporate law, in terms of the Investment Saskatchewan process. We struck an internal task force in government of senior officials and asked them to learn this deal inside and out from every single nuance. We hired the Conference Board of Canada to tell us what did this mean to all of you. All along, our priority was to remember that no matter who mines the potash, the resource belongs to the people of Saskatchewan. That's what Peter Lougheed reminded me of, by the way. Yeah, we've got a chance to know each other a little bit over the years, even back when I was in opposition, and he said to me, he asked me the same question that he always starts with. He asked me, Brad, whose potash is it? And I said, Premier, it's the people of Saskatchewan's potash. And he said, you're right, act like it, and you'll be fine. I believe in an unqualified way that Canada and Saskatchewan can be an open economy, welcoming of foreign direct investment, welcoming of an investment from a BHP or any other company from outside our borders, that we can be that province and that nation and still be a country and a province that says there may be certain proposed takeovers that aren't in the net benefit interests of our country. And so while we say yes to that kind of a brand for our business climate, we may also have to say no, not very often. 1,600 deals since '85 approved. We said no to 2 in this country. So not very often perhaps, but sometimes we may have to say no. And that was a very important distinguishing factor. I have been working very hard in the days since to talk to the international media. We'll do another interview with the Wall Street Journal later this day. We're taking all the bookings we can to make the point that we can say yes to an open market and still say no to this particular deal. I hope you'll also help us tell the world that there is this place in North America, difficult to pronounce, easy to draw, right in the middle of Canada, that is created jobs through the recession, that continues to create jobs, that is attracting investment still at record levels, that is growing in population like we haven't in 50 years, that actually needs workers and is welcoming people to come to the province to join us. I hope you will help us tell that story, because when we tell that story, we're going to have greater economic success. And when we do, and remember this is always the end game, life is better here. We have a broader tax base, and we can fund the police like they should be, and we can provide health care like we want to provide, and we can reduce wait times and provide better education, more accessible post-secondary education, but only if there's a tax base, only if we can afford it. That's the vision of the government of Saskatchewan. That's also the vision, I think, of the Prince Albert and District Chamber of Commerce. Last week didn't change that. If anything, it made us stronger. Thank you for your time.